Lesson today we are talking about writing formulas and naming compounds. We're going to start by looking at binary compounds, which is our pretty standard two-element compound. Now we have our standard ionic compounds, we have our multivalent compounds, and we have our covalent compounds. So we're going to start with a standard compound. For example, if I have NaCl, okay, we're going to look at our periodic tables and figure out what these chemical equations or what these symbols break down into, okay? So if we look at our periodic tables, we see that Na stands for sodium. And we see that Cl stands for chlorine. So this compound is sodium plus chlorine. When we go to name it, the first piece stays the same. Still just sodium. What happens is we don't capitalize the first letter on this piece here, so it's still lowercase c, and instead of chlorine, we cut off the last little bit and we change it to chloride. Okay? So sodium plus chlorine makes sodium chloride. Now when we're talking about multivalent bonds, we're talking about some of those metals that have 2 or 3 or even 4 different possible charges on it. You'll see it on your periodic table. There'll be a list right beside it. One example is Cu, which is copper. Copper can take on the form Cu1 plus or Cu2 plus. And so this does actually affect our naming. So if we continue on with this one, if I say, for example, have CuCl2. Now, like I said, this is copper. And this is still chlorine. Question is, which copper is it? And in order to figure that out, we're going to have to look at the subscript of the chlorine and see what balances out the charges. So we know that chlorine has a charge of -1. Now because we have 2 of them, 2 chlorines, our charge total is going to be -2. Now the reason for bonds, right, is to try and neutralize that charge, right? They want to have a 0 charge. So how could we possibly have something neutralize a -2 with only 1 copper ion if it's copper 2 plus? So when we rewrite this, we're going to say copper, and then we're going to use the Roman numerals for 2. Roman numerals. Then, just like before, we add chloride. All right, so that's it for this part. I'll move on to covalent in another video here.